Here are the new best WordPress themes for podcasters. Thank you for joining me for episode 336 of the Audacity to Podcast. I'm Daniel J. Lewis. Podcasters need a WordPress theme designed with features and flexibility to support podcasting. Duh, right? And while there are many WordPress themes out there that can be used on a podcast website, not many of them are actually podcast themes. And I will say that all it really takes to make a WordPress theme, almost any WordPress theme, a podcast theme, is a support for a player, or even not even support for a player, but putting a player on your website, almost no matter what WordPress theme you're using, can turn a regular WordPress website into a podcast website. Put a player in there, put subscription buttons, you're good to go. But you're missing out on many opportunities, on many features, on many ways that can make your life as a podcaster easier and allow you to do things better on your website. So I have 11 reasons why I think SecondLine Themes are your new best choice for a podcast theme for WordPress. If you want to follow along, tap inside of your podcast app to get to the show notes, or go to the audacitytopodcast.com/secondline and spell out the word second. Before I get into this, I do want to disclose that I do have an affiliate relationship with SecondLine Themes. And I'm happy about this because my affiliate ID, if you click on my affiliate link, you might see the ID number, and there is 1. Yeah, I'm the first affiliate for SecondLine Themes. And the reason I'm an affiliate is because I was so impressed by SecondLine Themes. It wasn't the other way around. And that's my practice, is I don't recommend things because I'm an affiliate. I become an affiliate because I recommend certain things. I try to become an affiliate for the things that I like. So I liked SecondLine Themes before I became an affiliate. And further disclosure, SecondLine Themes gave me access to their themes at no cost to myself, but I would have purchased them. They are so good. And I'm going to tell you why with these 11 reasons. And you can follow along in the show notes at the audacitytopodcast.com/secondline, as well as get my affiliate link for SecondLine Themes if you're interested in purchasing the themes. Number 1, integration with PowerPress. The reason why I see this as so important, and I'm listing this as number 1, is because PowerPress is the top podcasting plugin for WordPress. It's used by more than 60,000 podcasters, maybe even more by the time you're hearing this. It is so popular, and it's very powerful. It's also a really good framework for supporting podcasting on a WordPress website. Because if you can support PowerPress with your website, then you can easily integrate with a lot of other things. For example, there are a lot of players out there that integrate with PowerPress. So if you want to switch your podcasting player, you simply switch your podcasting player plugin, and it automatically changes for all of your past and future episodes. You don't have to go back into all of your episodes and switch them from one player to another. If that player integrates with PowerPress and you've been using PowerPress, then it's an easy switch. And if you're publishing your RSS feed from your WordPress website through PowerPress, then integrating with PowerPress should be a no-brainer for podcast themes. But I'm really surprised how many WordPress themes I see that say they're a podcast theme and they don't support PowerPress. It's like, come on, this is the number 1 podcasting plugin for WordPress. How can you say you have a podcast theme and not support PowerPress? Well, SecondLine Themes does. That's really important to me, and I think really important for a podcast WordPress theme to do, is to support PowerPress, integrate with it, so that you don't have to do a lot of work. If you've been working with PowerPress already, it should just be a drop-in replacement to switch your theme. So that's why I say that's number 1, why SecondLine Themes are the new best WordPress themes for podcasters. And yes, some other themes do integrate with PowerPress too, but it's a lot of these other reasons I'm about to share with you that I think really set SecondLine Themes apart from other podcast themes. Number 2, support for other podcasting plugins for WordPress. If while I was talking about PowerPress, you're thinking, yeah, I get it, but I don't use PowerPress, or I don't care about PowerPress. I use this other podcasting plugin. Well, SecondLine Themes probably supports it. They support Seriously Simple Podcasting, Simple Podcast Press, Podlove, the Buzzsprout WordPress plugin, and even Smart Podcast Player. And Smart Podcast Player, that's the player from Pat Flynn, that doesn't support PowerPress. But you can integrate Smart Podcast Player so easily into your website by using SecondLine Themes. Instead of doing the very manual process, at least right now, to integrate Smart Podcast Player into your website, especially if you have a lot of past episodes, using SecondLine Themes and Smart Podcast Player together, make them integrate together and you don't have to go back and make a lot of changes. Maybe not even any past changes at all. And if there's a major podcasting plugin that SecondLine Themes doesn't support or something that's really important to you in your workflow, then reach out to their support and they can probably get it integrated very easily and very quickly. But I'm jumping ahead when I'm talking about their support. That's number 2, support for other podcasting plugins for WordPress. Number 3, a versatile embed field for more player options. Maybe you don't want to use a WordPress plugin to put a player on your website. Maybe you prefer the player from your podcast hosting provider, like Libsyn, Captivate, Simplecast, Anchor, whoever it is. Maybe you prefer that over the options you've seen for WordPress. SecondLine Themes makes it really easy to put those into your posts. Instead of pasting them just into the body of your post, there's a special field for every post in SecondLine Themes where you can paste that embed code in there, the little HTML. It could be an iframe, it could be JavaScript, whatever it is. You can paste that into this special embed field, and then that will display the player in the appropriate places on your website for that podcast episode. So you don't have to hack into your theme to make sure that it displays the player in the right places. Like, for example, just getting a player to display with the excerpts for your episodes can be really difficult if that player doesn't already have a WordPress plugin, but SecondLine Themes makes that really easy. It's really versatile. And you can even use this for one-off things. Like maybe you have a normal audio podcast that you do with PowerPress, but you have one particular episode that's maybe from another podcast and you want to use their embedded player on your site to display that embedded player in the same nice prominent locations like SecondLine Themes does. You can use their embed code. Or maybe you want to share a YouTube video as an episode instead of an audio episode. You can very easily embed that to display in those player locations that are great for podcast websites. Number 4, beautiful design. Yes, there are the standard things where responsive, SEO friendly, speed optimized, that kind of stuff. That's all there. But let's focus on the aesthetics of it, which is a difficult enough word to say. The SecondLine Themes are beautiful. They're very clean. They're modern. They're future technology focused. I've seen some podcast themes that focus a lot on using images for things. And images are not a good way to go because images will slow down a website. Images don't look good on all devices because if you have a Retina device or a high pixel density device like an iPhone, a MacBook, some of those really high resolution displays, images sometimes don't look well on those devices. And especially if the website coding is not designed to display the image at the right size and right density of pixels and right resolution and all of that stuff, if that's not in there, then your images definitely won't look right. Images are also not very responsive to different devices. If you have a really wide image, that doesn't scale well if someone is looking on a small phone or on a big screen. You have to step away from images somewhat to get a really future-proof, beautiful website. And SecondLine Themes certainly does that. Now, they do support images in some really cool ways and some new features that came out just the day before I'm recording this episode. They supported some things that I requested that make their image support even better. And the way that they can work with images, like their title area background images for a couple of their themes, Tucson, Bolden, maybe a couple others. And I'm using Tucson on my own website over at the audacitypodcast.com. The way they integrate with the images and the way that they design the rest of the website, really beautiful, clean, modern, friendly, responsive, all of that stuff that a website design should be. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, go over to the audacitypodcast.com. Look at the new design of the website. That's based on Tucson. It's using a theme from SecondLine Themes. And that's why I'm such a big fan of this. I've gotten my hands dirty with this theme. My previous WordPress theme was built on top of the Genesis framework, but it was really a mostly hand-coded theme. So whenever people would ask me, hey, I really like your WordPress theme, where can I get that? I'd have to tell them, well, I made it myself. So sorry, you can't get it. I designed it myself, coded it myself, and I don't sell it, and I don't do web design for other people anymore. Sorry. Well, now I can tell people, oh, I use this theme from SecondLine Themes. Check out this theme or some of their other great themes for podcasters. It's really beautiful. And I hope you agree that when you look at the audacitytopodcast.com now compared to the way it was before, it looks a lot nicer now. It's a lot more interesting, especially the way that the Audacity to Podcast, both as a podcast and as a brand with many things under it, has grown over the years. The old WordPress theme just wasn't scaling with that. But Tucson from SecondLine Themes does scale with that, and it's beautiful with the way that they do it. I'll talk more about some of my personal likes about that in a moment and why I chose it. Number 5, podcast-focused features. In addition to stuff like supporting PowerPress and other podcasting plugins and supporting embeds for your own players, there are a lot of podcast-focused features built into the SecondLine Themes that many podcasters want on their sites. For example, supporting a podcast network. Now, you might not actually have a podcast network or any of the structure that comes along with that, whether it's legal structure or anything else, but you might have multiple shows. On the audacitytopodcast.com, I have multiple shows. I'm not really running a network, but I do have the Audacity to Podcast, which you're listening to right now, in case you weren't aware. I also did for a little while, I did Inside the Podcasting Business, which I might bring back at some point in the future. And I'm a co-host on Podcasters Roundtable. And I do videos for the Audacity to Podcast. And I publish those on my website as well as upload those videos to YouTube and to my Facebook page. So I'm kind of running multiple shows from a single show website. And several of the themes from SecondLine Themes support this idea of a podcast network, however you want to define that network, even if you're not really looking at it as a network, where you can assign certain episodes to certain shows on the network, and you can run it like a network. You can also have those individual episodes in the way that they tie to the separate shows can look different for those separate shows. I really like the way that they do this, is that you can have this really nice big header that can have your podcast cover art, a description of the podcast, the title of the podcast. I'm talking the overall podcast, like the Audacity to Podcast versus Inside the Podcasting Business versus Podcasters Roundtable. That's what I mean when I say podcast, is the overall show. And you can have separate headers for these shows that display the cover art, the title, even the subscription buttons for that podcast. And that can be above the episode content that fits inside of that show. So when people land on that single episode webpage, they're seeing the promotion for your overall show in a really beautiful way. Plus, SecondLine Themes include a great subscription buttons plugin that, I'll be honest, is pretty good competition to my own social subscribe and follow icons plugin for WordPress. I think there's a good case to maybe even use both on some websites or use one over the other. And the subscription buttons plugin that comes with the SecondLine Themes, really, I'm going to be transparent and say, I really do think it is the other best subscription buttons plugin for podcasters that you can put on your WordPress website. And some podcast themes out there, oh gosh, they're still talking about iTunes. They might not even support something like Google Podcasts or Subscribe on Android or Spotify or Pandora, or all of these newer important platforms available for podcasters to put their shows on and to promote their shows being on. But the subscription buttons plugin that you can get with SecondLine Themes does support these. And I like the way that they support them. It takes a different approach than what I do with social subscribe and follow icons. And I think it's a good approach. I won't say my approach is better or their approach is better. They're simply different approaches. And I like the way that they've done it. And yes, you might want to use their subscription plugin instead of mine, or you might want to use mine instead of theirs. And I'll give you a little spoiler of something coming up soon. Social subscribe and follow icons will eventually work really nicely and seamlessly inside of SecondLine Themes. That's a little preview of something yet to come. Additional podcast-focused features included in all of the SecondLine themes that they offer, and they do have several themes. Tucson is just one of them. That's the one I'm running on my own website, but they have several others, and some of them have features more prominent than others. Like, for example, Tucson and Bolden, especially Bolden, have a lot of network-focused features, but you can use them for a single podcast as well. But you're going to see many of these features also probably spread to the other themes as well. But each of the themes includes their own player built in as well. So maybe you don't get Simple Podcast Press or Smart Podcast Player. Maybe you don't want to embed the player from your podcast host, but you also don't want that plain, boring WordPress player that's included, that when you're using PowerPress and its default settings, it's just using that simple player. Maybe that's too boring for you. And I kind of think it is a bit boring. But these SecondLine themes include a player. And a lot of themes, like Elegant Themes, Divi, Themify, many other themes do include audio players. But using those audio players with your podcast means breaking your workflow. It means going back and editing past episodes and being locked into that particular theme's way of doing things. But with SecondLine Themes, the player is immediately displayed based on your data from PowerPress or from Seriously Simple Podcasting or from some of these other podcasting plugins. So it's really easy to instantly have a great looking player on your site. And those players are displayed prominently in those appropriate locations that are ideal for a podcast website. It's not something that you have to go in and say, I want the audio player to display here and do that for every single episode. It's just there for you. Plus, if you're trying to build your newsletter list, an email list for your podcast, which I do recommend podcasters have an email list, SecondLine Themes includes subscription signups that make it really easy to promote that email list and not have to go fishing for other plugins. It's built right in and very beautifully as well. Number 6, easy setup. I was blown away by how easy it was to get going with SecondLine Themes. They have this really nice setup wizard. It does something as simple as asks you for your license key while you're installing the theme. And it also offers you the opportunity to install these recommended other plugins for your site. And you can choose to not install one of them if you don't want it. But the way that it goes about this is really easy. It's fast. It's simple. I really like the way they're doing it. I wish more themes and plugins integrated that kind of nice, we call it an onboarding experience, that experience of getting set up with the plugin or with the theme. And I really like the way that SecondLine Themes has made that so easy. Number 7 reason why I think SecondLine Themes are the best WordPress themes for podcasters: friendly Elementor page builder. There are many different page builders out there, and my next episode of the Audacity to Podcast will talk more about Elementor specifically and what a page builder is and why you'd want it and what you can do with it and such. But in short, a page builder, as the name implies, helps you to build a web page. But it does so very easily. Instead of having to think about JavaScript and CSS and HTML and PHP and how this all ties together, you can build a page very easily without knowing any of that code. You can drag and drop elements. Different builder plugins will call them different things like modules or elements or widgets, but they're all the basic same thing. You're putting a block of something. It could be a list of episodes. It could be subscription buttons. It could be a headline. It could be an image. You're building your page by dragging and dropping things, making a grid, aligning things as you want, scaling them. There are other page builder plugins like Themify and Divi, Elementor, Beaver Builder. And I've looked at these. I've tried many of them. I go back and forth about which one's best and which one do I like best. Elementor, I think, is one of, if not the best. It's fast. It's easy. It's flexible. It's open. It doesn't break with every single update from the developers like one of the other page builder plugins I've worked with before. Themify. But Elementor is very powerful. And there's a free version of Elementor. There is a pro paid version as well, and I do recommend that. I'll talk more about Elementor and Elementor Pro in my next episode. But you don't have to pay for Elementor Pro. SecondLine Themes includes Elementor widgets for you so that you can very easily bring in a list of posts with your episode player in there. So it's a list of podcast episodes, not simply a list of WordPress blog posts. SecondLine Themes widgets built for Elementor are just right there. And it installs Elementor along with that nice, easy setup that I just mentioned. So you don't have to worry about going and finding Elementor or making sure that you're buying the right version. You don't have to buy Elementor. There's a free version and SecondLine Themes integrates with it and offers those widgets for you to make it very easy to build your website, to build pages on your website with Elementor and with the widgets that they offer built in to support your podcast. Number 8, extensive customization options. You may have gone into the WordPress customizer for different themes and seeing where on some themes you can change the font, you can change the logo, the colors and such. The SecondLine Themes provide a lot of options for you to change how you want your theme to look. Just for example, Tucson is a dark theme, but I switched things around to make it a light theme. And most of that was done through the customizer. You can change the colors, you can change fonts, you can change certain features and much more to really customize your site the way you want. And you don't have to know the web code to do that. You're dragging things, choosing options, you're switching things around very easily. And you can see that all in real time too. That's the beauty of the WordPress customizer, is that when you change an option, it refreshes the view for you so you can see how that looks before you publish it. And SecondLine Themes integrate with the customizer very well and give you a lot of options that you can customize. Number 9, fantastic support and updates. I have emailed Thomas from SecondLine Themes a lot, suggested things, reported bugs, offered ideas and opinions on certain stuff, requested help on certain things. And the support that he's provided has been fantastic. It's fast. They push out updates frequently. They are really supporting the theme well. There was a previous WordPress theme provider for podcasters that I'd recommended, and they just disappeared. Their support team disappeared first and stopped answering emails, and then the website broke and came back and broke again and came back. They stopped putting out updates. Well, SecondLine Themes is very actively being supported and updated. And it's really cool to see what they're doing with it. And plus, by the way, SecondLine Themes don't require you to buy another theme to go along with the theme that you're buying. You might see that often with Genesis-based themes where you have to buy the Genesis framework in addition to the theme that you're buying. And then you might have 2 subscriptions going. Well, SecondLine Themes makes it really easy. You can subscribe to just one theme. You can subscribe to a bundle. You can even get lifetime access. And I really recommend that you consider the lifetime access option because that gives you access to all of the themes, lifetime updates and support. And it's a really good value, especially if you have multiple websites. If you think you'll be using the theme for a while, I usually recommend getting the lifetime theme option. But back to what I'm talking about here, their support is fantastic. And number 10, they also include, and this isn't built only for their themes, but it shows how much SecondLine Themes is aware of the podcast industry, the needs of podcasters, and the options that they want to offer for podcasters. They now have a free podcast importer plugin that you can get from the standard WordPress repository for plugins. So you can install it on any WordPress site, and it can work with any theme, and it can work with PowerPress, and it can work without PowerPress, but it can import podcasts to your website. This is great for moving a podcast from something else into your website. It's also good for automatically re-syndicating your podcast. Like maybe you use your media host to create your RSS feed, but you still want to have podcast episodes on your site. Well, there's this free plugin provided by SecondLine Themes, so you can bring those podcast episodes automatically to your site. It can even support multiple podcasts. So if you have, for example, a network page where every podcast on your network, or however you want to put network in quotation marks, however serious you are about a network there, but you might have several podcasts on separate websites with separate RSS feeds, but you want to have this one central website that shows all of those episodes from all of those podcasts. You can use the free podcast importer plugin to bring those all in. Plus, since we're talking about something kind of like a podcast network, if you use one of those network-ready themes from SecondLine Themes, which right now, Tucson and Bolden are the best themes they offer that have those network functionalities built into them, then using this podcast importer plugin can automatically put things in the right places so your network site can look and work great for you. And then last but not least, number 11, from my personal experience, Tucson, specifically the Tucson theme from SecondLine Themes already did about 90% of what I wanted. I was working with Themify. I tried some things with Divi. I tried some things with Beaver Builder. I tried some things with other themes. I had an idea of what I wanted my website to look like, but it was taking so long to do with other things. If you've been following the Audacity to podcast and looking at the website for a while, you may have noticed that I updated the cover art, but didn't update the website design to fit the cover art. And in fact, that cover art design that I'd had that for, I think, more than a year. And I was waiting to switch to the new cover art design because the website didn't match it. So I was really trying to get the website working for a couple or a few years even, and just not really finding anything that did what I wanted the way I wanted it and as easily as I wanted it. I was having to get into the PHP and the HTML and CSS and JavaScript and customize things and add special fields and background things. And I was thinking, oh no, if there's an update, this might break all of this stuff. And I really don't want to maintain all this code and do all this stuff manually. I just want something that works. And Tucson does almost all of that. And the more they update the theme, the higher that number gets for it doing exactly what I want already without my having to do any special customization stuff. And at this point, I don't think I've done any custom PHP work in order to make my website function and look the way I wanted it to. For me, certain things that were really important were I was starting to design these episode images. I wanted those to display very prominently on the website, not just embedded in the episode content, but I wanted them in the header. But without the text, I wanted the title text to be displayed over that image, but I wanted the image to be darkened so that the text could be more readable, and then blurred so that the text could be more readable if that background image had a lot of high contrast areas. And in putting this all together, yes, I could make my own versions of the images from Photoshop or something like that, but that's more work. I just want something that worked and did it for me. I didn't have to do all this manual stuff and think a lot about different things. I wanted something that looked great and put the player prominently on the website so people could see that player and could do all of these things for me and look good in the process. And the SecondLine Themes, Tucson specifically, did so much of that for me. And I was able to ditch all that manual PHP code and the JavaScript and CSS that I was working with other themes and just switch to Tucson, and it looks great. And don't think that you have to design all of these images for your episodes. I do recommend every episode have its own image, but you don't have to design that. Tucson can still look great, and the other SecondLine themes can still look great with your podcast, and you can change the colors to match your podcast and change aspects about the theme to fit with your podcast branding and really look like this unified site, carrying over your colors, some of your background images, and more. And I really liked how Tucson made it so easy for me to get started, to do what I wanted. I mentioned that I was working with other themes for a couple years and still didn't launch the redesign of the site. With Tucson, I sat down, worked on it over a weekend, and got things where I wanted it. It was that easy. And really, I had the new design basically in place with only a couple hours of work. And then I wanted to go in and tweak a bunch of things and see, what happens if I change this option or switch this over to that? So that's why it took even longer than a couple or a few hours. But really, it took me only a few hours to do what I'd been trying to do with custom coding and years of work on other themes. Tucson did so much of that already, making that so much easier for me. I really like it when the tool makes something easier for you. And that's why I think SecondLine Themes are the new best WordPress themes for podcasters. I'll share this list again with you, and you can follow along in the show notes and get my affiliate link to SecondLine Themes over at theaudacitytopodcast.com/SecondLine. Number 1, integration with PowerPress. Number 2, support for other podcasting plugins for WordPress. Number 3, a versatile embed field for more player options. Number 4, beautiful design. Number 5, podcast-focused features. Number 6, easy setup. Number 7, friendly Elementor page builder, which I'll talk more about in the next episode. Number 8, extensive customization options. Number 9, fantastic support and updates. Number 10, a free podcast importer plugin. And number 11, for me, Tucson already did about 90% of what I wanted. So if you want better functionality and features for your podcast on your WordPress website, and you're tired of messing with other WordPress themes, and maybe lack of support or lack of integration with podcasting tools and such, check out SecondLine Themes. I've got the affiliate link for it and my show notes over at theaudacitytopodcast.com/secondline. That's spelled SecondLine. theaudacitytopodcast.com/secondline to see the show notes and the links for episode 336. Now that I've given you some of the guts and taught you some of the tools, it's time for you to go start and grow your own podcast for passion or profit. I'm Daniel J. Lewis from theaudacitytopodcast.com. Thanks for listening.